Now what I'd like to talk about are ways to deal with the mental component of distress. I presented a few ideas on the physical component and have asked you to invent more, and I have the same message here. So in dealing with mental tension, or what we call worry, I've got some ideas, but please just use my ideas as fodder for your own creativity and invent your own. My favorite idea for dealing with worry is to mentally zoom out, is to take and imagine myself, observing my life, observing whatever is going on that's creating that worry, and I observe it from outside of myself. It looks a bit like this, so that instead of observing life and what's going on from here, I imagine, just in my imagination, there's nothing mystical about this, I imagine moving my attention out here and then observing from out here myself and whatever's going on around me. Again, this is just a mental construct, which of course is what we're talking about. We're talking about ways to deal with mental distress, or what we call worry. And the technique is zooming out. So I zoom out and have that, what psychologists call observer consciousness, and then I'm looking at, observing, sensing what's going on, but not from inside of me, but from an imaginary place somewhat removed from me. Now, what often happens for me is then I get what we call perspective. Now, sometimes just being out a foot or two is not nearly enough perspective. So then what you do is you zoom out maybe 20 feet, and you not only watch yourself, but you watch the people around you. Now often when I use this technique, it's almost laughable what I see. Because usually what I see is a grown man completely at the mercy and the effect of a few people around me. And I start to laugh because I recognize that I'm almost like a machine, almost like a robot, that you push this button and everything gets all tight, all worried. Somebody says the wrong thing, or what I consider to be the wrong thing, or what I imagine to be an insulting thing, or somebody presents an idea that maybe is different than mine. All of a sudden, my mind's a worrying, my speech becomes stuttered, and all of a sudden, I'm just like a robot. And I can see that when I zoom out. Once in a while, zooming out 20 feet's insufficient. There have been many times in my life when I zoom out 20 feet, look around, and nothing looks humorous, and nothing looks acceptable, and the only sensible reaction looks like I should be worrying. So then, zoom out further. Instead of just being 20 feet out, go a mile out. Now that almost always works for me. It's like the ability to take yourself in a hot air balloon and zoom out, and now all of a sudden I see me down there on the ground and my organization, but then I see other organizations and other people, and I notice that what looks like something worth worrying about from the perspective of 2 feet away or 10 feet away, from the perspective of a mile away, there's nothing worth worrying about. So that's the technique. Now, just like always, the technique doesn't work unless applied. So next time you're in a distressful situation, please take that moment and zoom out. And then from that place, see if, well, how does it look? And now, let's say you even zoom out a mile, and it still looks like you ought to be worrying. Well, then zoom out 10 miles, because when you zoom out far enough and you look around the world at all that's going on, I don't think any of us are in a situation worth worrying about.